In this video, we will discuss what is the Doctrine command line tool. The command line tool is actually a shell script which is symbolically linked to vendor bin doctrine. The actual shell script itself is vendor doctrine orm bin doctrine. It executes a PHP script which includes doctrine.php, which contains the primary functionality for the command line tool. The command line tool includes DBAL, or Database Abstraction Layer, and also ORM, or Object Relational Mapping functionality. The DBAL functionality is low level and allows you to directly run SQL statements or import them. ORM, on the other hand, is higher level and is oriented towards schema, entity, and repository management. ORM functionality is broken down into management of cache, conversions, generation, and Schema Tool. Other functionality is informational, including describing of mapping information and also running DQL or Doctrine query language. As you can see, vendor bin doctrine is a symbolic link to the actual shell script. There are also links to Doctrine DBAL and Doctrine.php. Just typing the command itself gives you an initial help screen. Help is available at any point by adding --help to a specific command. So for example, if we want to get help on generation of entities, let's test this out. So we would type in vendor bin doctrine, ORM : generate -entities space --help. This gives us specific help on this particular functionality. Notice that the help may be extensive, so you might have to scroll up to view the beginning. The cache-related functionality is extremely helpful if you've implemented metadata, query, and/or result cache. What could happen over time is that as you develop your code, the changes may not necessarily be reflected because the cache might still be in place. The command line tool gives you a quick and easy way to remove this sort of cache. So now, for example, we have successfully cleared metadata and query cache. The conversion functionality is oriented towards converting from older Doctrine 1 schema into Doctrine 2. There's also a very nice mapping facility which lets you create mapping information, for example, from your database on different formats, which include annotations, straight PHP, XML, and YAML. You'll also notice some alternate syntax. So for example, instead of saying ORM : convert -mapping, I could say ORM : convert : mapping, both of which will do the same thing. So for example, if we issue the command vendor bin doctrine ORM : convert : mapping space -- from database space annotation space config, it will create configuration from the database using annotations and place them in the config folder. The file extension will automatically be .php. If we take a look at one of these, you'll notice it's a full-fledged entity definition. However, it's minus the getters and setters. We could, however, take this definition and use generate entities to produce the final entity definition. The Schema Tool functionality allows you to create, drop, and update the schema. There's also a validation functionality which will verify that the schema in the database matches the schema in your entity definitions. So as an example, let's take the test entity, which is under application entity. You'll notice that we've got a property called tag, where the length is set to 8 and nulls are not allowed. Let's now go to the database and make a modification. So for example, let's set it to a data type of char, a width of 16, and allow nulls. If we now run validate schema, we will see, of course, that the two definitions are not in sync. We can then run ORM schema tool update with the dump SQL flag to find out what changes would be made if we allowed the schema to modify the database. And as you can see, the entity definition indicates variable character length 8, not null. We now run the command again and use the -- force flag. As you can see, one query was executed. Let's now go back and refresh our screen. You can see that tag has now been changed back to varchar 8, allow nulls no. Turning to the DBAL functionality, you will recall we can run SQL statements directly. So we now run vendor bin doctrine dbal run SQL followed by an SQL statement in quotes. In this example, we are getting a dump of all that is in the test table. We can also import an SQL file using dbal import. In this case, we processed the file test_update.sql. In this file, we performed a simple update on test, where we changed the description to updated description. If we now rerun our SQL statement, you can see that the information has now been changed in the test table.